in this. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining this course. Thank you for inviting me me and Dr. Zaid Barzanji to teach this course. Just at the beginning, let me try and introduce myself, and then I will expect everybody to introduce themselves also, so that we can get to know each other. So my name is Ildos Rafikov. I'm a Russian citizen, and I've been living in Malaysia I had been living in Malaysia for more than 25 years. I studied at the International Islamic University. I did my bachelor's degree there and my PhD, and my master's degree I did at the International Center for Education and Islamic Finance, also in Kuala Lumpur. So most of my experience is from the International Islamic University, Malaysia, and my whole most of my adult life was there in Malaysia. And now with my family, we moved to Istanbul, to Turkey. So I'm here in Istanbul now, and it is quite hot, I would say. It was very hot, especially today. Now it's 35 degrees outside. Okay, so my PhD I did as a research at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization. It's part of the International Islamic University, Malaysia. And I did my PhD research on the philosophy of Islamic economics and finance, on methodology, basically. So, and my bachelor degree was not related to economics, and that was mass communication. I did in public relations. So my last two institutions I did was related to Islamic economics and finance. So what else? I'm also at the same time, yes, I'm member of the Maqasid Institute, and I'm also the lecturer or instructor and the managing director at the Institute of Knowledge Integration, which is registered in Georgia. And we are supported by IIIT USA, and we are providing free courses, and we are offering a postgraduate certificate in Islamic thought and knowledge integration. So we are in the week 10 now in the first trimester. We have 3 trimesters per year, and this is just something that we have started specifically for the area that I am from, for the former Soviet Union republics. But also we have a lot of students from around the world, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Tanzania, where else? From Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and even as far as Guyana. Subhanallah. So this is who I am. This is what I do, and I'm also teaching at that institute. I'm teaching Islamic Epistemology, and I'm teaching methodology class in Russian, or both in English and in Russian. So this is something new for me, for us, and we have quite a good team working with me in that. And I'm happy to maybe represent Maqasid Institute here with you, and inshallah we can maybe we can learn something together and I will learn something from you, and you'll get maybe something from me, inshallah. And well, just to let you know something, I'm not a professor. Don't expect me to give lengthy lectures. So it's not something that I've been doing for a long time. So that is, I'm more of an instructor and facilitator. That's who I am mostly. And so that's about myself. And I would really appreciate if you would start introducing yourselves. And how do we go about it? I have this list here of participants, and I can go according to list under after myself. There we have Bahija, and I think this is because I don't know the names. I mean, please forgive me. So.
Okay, maybe if I may start, and I ask Marv to all the other senior members and honor to you, seeing that you now mentioned my daughter's name. I'm Adil Jansen. I'm one of obviously the Adil, yeah, Adil. Jansen. I'm one of the master students, and I have been enrolled for masters as of last year. Yeah, so my formal journey in Islamic studies was, as I would say, 2019. I've been studying, doing Islamic studies on an informal basis, I would say, all my life. I have a legal background, so I work presently as a prosecutor in a criminal court, and I have a legal background, or further legal background in respect of I was practicing as an attorney. So I must be honest with you, learned Sheikh, that my knowledge of finance is not obviously that wide. I know a little bit. So I'm obviously hoping to learn quite a lot from this class. I think that's probably, I don't want to say too much.
Thank you. That's good. That's good. Okay, next I see.
Can I go?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
Wa alaikum assalam.
I am Kenyan. I'm also a master student at IPSA. Also with Adil, last year we started the course. Alhamdulillah, I was also fortunate to do the honors program with Dr. Yasser. So we've come through the honors program with him at IPSA, and now we're in the master's program with him as well, inshallah, and looking forward to future studies as well. So my background, I started out as an oral hygienist, studied at UWC at the University of the Western Cape. And then I went on to do my Bachelor in Arts in Psychology and Sociology. And then I continued to do my postgraduate certificate in education. So I then went out into education. I did some teaching. And I was also fortunate to do a small course in life coaching in the year 2019 when we were doing our honors program. And we started a little organization or a school or a business called the Etiquette and Life Orientation School, where we basically take people through a certain amount of coaching, but particularly referring to categories in the arts, in trade, in travel, as well as literacy and numeracy. So I'm very excited about this program because we battle with finances, and I think our management of finances more than anything else. So it's not the money that's not there, it's how do we actually manage the money that we do have. And that's where I am right now.
Could you how do I pronounce your name, please?
Dhurriya.
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 Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, then Abdul Ghafoor Kamaluddin.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
MashaAllah. Shukran. Yes, I am a lifelong student, alhamdulillah, very passionate about Islam, studied at many different institutions, studied formally as well as informally. And I love the traditional manhaj, and a lot of respect for knowledge with isnad. And I've got a master's degree as well, and an honors degree, like most of us that have completed at IPSA. And continuing now with this master's with IPSA, master's in applied Islamic thought. Also very passionate about serving in communities, doing khidmah for the well-being of our society, moving to a higher level of consciousness, Allah consciousness. And so I'm also involved at different organizations and masajid. At one masjid, I'm a chairman, alhamdulillah. So leadership is important for us, and how we take and direct from a Islamic perspective, especially the financial part, mu'amalat, is very important. And so we look forward to this course, to be an informative course. And we're grateful to be here, alhamdulillah, shukran.
Have you studied economics in any way?
Yeah, I did a little bit, yes.
Okay, all right. Then next would be Adi Rahman. I know that Dr. Adi is from Indonesia and doctor in economics, but please, I think it would be good for everyone to get to know you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ildus. I am Adi Rahman from Indonesia. Right now, I'm a lecturer in Islamic Economic at State Islamic University Sultan Taha Saifuddin Jambi. And right now, I'm a managing editor of journal Contemporary Maqasid Studies that's issued by Maqasid Institute. I'm very excited join this class, and hopefully can be contribute and learn everything from Dr. Ildus. I know his good article from Dr. Ildus, knowledge integration. I think we should learn more from Dr. Ildus, I think. Thank you from me.
Thank you. Well,
Right
of course
now
we will.
in Indonesia, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. It's very late now, so I don't stay as much as
But
you
I'm
can.
happy join with this class.
Stay as much as you can, but then if you get too sleepy, it's okay. I'm recording this session, so inshallah you'll have access to the.
No. I will join until the end of this session.
All right. Thank you. That would be great.
You're welcome.
Okay, Sister Aisha Ajit. I see in the list Aisha Ajit. Are you there? Well, you can also type in the chat box if you don't want to speak on the microphone. You can just type in the chat box.
Sorry, Doctor. Aisha is part of the administration, so I think when
okay.
realize you're the host,
okay,
she might
all
not
right.
be 100%.
Okay. Sorry, I need to write that. Okay. Ilham Awi. Yes, please go ahead. We cannot hear you, Ilham.
She's typing.
Ah,
and saying
okay.
she's in Pretoria and it's Maghrib here now. In
Okay.
Pretoria.
Okay. Before we continue with others, what time is it now in Cape Town, in your place now? I think the majority
10 to 6. 10 to 6.
10 to 6. And what time
Yeah.
is Maghrib?
In Cape Town, I'm not sure today, but in Pretoria it's Maghrib now. So there's a few people from Pretoria that's maybe leaving now for a few minutes. But I'm not sure what time it's in Cape Town now. Adil?
But it's about 10 past now, 10, 11 minutes past.
10 past 6, call it 10 past 6.
Yeah, 10 past 6 is Maghrib.
10 past 6. Okay.
So yeah, so we here have about 20 minutes before Maghrib. But
Okay. Usually,
Yeah.
how do you do it? In other classes, what do you do?
if I may,
Yes,
what
sir.
we normally do, we normally take a break for Maghrib when it's Maghrib time, and we unfortunately take the break when it is Maghrib for us here in Cape Town.
No, it's okay. It's good. It's good. We
Yes,
should.
and we take about a 15-minute break, Tom.
15 minutes. Okay. All right. I'll know that. I'll note that.
And also it entirely depends on how long your lectures is going to be. Yeah, so.
Okay. Now, if I see Zuleika typed in Pretoria.
She took a break because it's Maghrib. She's in
Yeah,
Johannesburg.
yeah.
Because it's Maghrib, so she just stopped now early on, and she just took a break for Maghrib.
Okay, all right. Nabil.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yeah, I studied at a very young age. 13, I went to Johannesburg to learn Tahfidh al-Quran, memorize the Quran. I came back. Also did my schooling, high school in Johannesburg. I'm originally from Cape Town. Came back at the age of 18, 19. I enrolled in the Islamic institution for Imamat, 3 years, Dar al-Arqam, where I did Islamic studies. And then from there, I went to Al-Azhar, alhamdulillah, where I met a lot of Russian brothers from Indonesia, from Malaysia, so I know exactly. I still have a friend, I don't know if you know him, is Professor Iman Sastra. He's originally from Indonesia. Yeah, he runs the Islamic finance department in one of the Muslim countries also. So I did my college years at Al-Azhar, alhamdulillah, also then completed my Islamic degree, BA honors in Islamic law at Al-Azhar, where I majored in comparative fiqh. So my background in terms of Islamic finance is basically only from a traditional point of view in terms of the muamalat sector that we normally do at any Islamic institution. And then I returned. I was appointed as an imam at the masjid, and I'm still imam. So I'm basically now at the mosque waiting for Maghrib, working in the community for over 15 to 20 years, alhamdulillah. Also currently a teacher at a high school, Islamic high school. I'm teaching Arabic and Islamic studies, the HOD of the Islamic department, and also the Hafiz Academy Al-Azhar. I also taught at a higher level, usul fiqh and comparative fiqh and all the traditional sciences at the Islamic institution, Medina, in Cape Town. So this year I took a break. I taught part-time lecturer. Yeah, and alhamdulillah, I'm enrolled in this master's program. Shukran.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Nabil. Then, okay, who else do we have? Sabira Shabuddin.
Right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So I'm in the master's program. Would that be sufficient?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Right. Jazakumullah.
And next, let me see. Sani Aliu Saidi. Sani Aliu.
Ali from Nigeria.
Sani Ali.
But he's also Cape Townian, so yeah, there he is.
Are you there, Ali? Okay, maybe later. Wahib? Yeah, go ahead.
As my first degree and also at the master's level.
Ali, you're breaking up. Ilham Awil from Ethiopia.
Marshall, there are some people waiting to be admitted into the meeting.
Well, let me see. Yes, Imran, Sheikh Imran. Okay, join. Okay, with Ali, I think it didn't really work well. So who else is there? Wahib. Did we?
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
ما شاء الله. بسم الله. My name is Muhammad Wahib Abdul Jabbar. Subhanallah, I am no one, first of all. Secondly, Alhamdulillah, we are also part of the master's program, completed the honors with IPSA as well. And I think, like everyone else, there's quite a journey in our life, but at this moment of time, that's sufficient, inshallah.
Yeah.
I have no background of nothing, inshallah.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, all right. Okay, who is that? Who is that trying to speak up?
From Nigeria.
From Nigeria. So Ali, please go ahead. If the video, if the picture is
okay.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
My name is Ali. I studied philosophy. So I studied master's in philosophy from the University of Lagos. I also had my master's in philosophy from the University of Lagos.
Okay.
So,
all right.
And I came to Cape Town to further my studies also. So I'm studying master's in applied Islamic thought at IPSA presently, and always in my life being in the class, mostly as a student. So, and primary scholarship, because I've been indoctrinated by my grandfather to think that the best thing that can happen to me is to be an Islamic student, an Islamic scholar.
Okay,
so
all right, great. Yunus Peterson. Walaikum assalam.
Dr. Afikov, in fact, I must admit first, I'm quite fascinated. It's the first time in our lives, in my life at least, that we are being taught by a Russian scholar, mashallah. For the bulk of my life, we have been scared, with the government dispensation at the time, with the people from the, the Eastern European, including Russian countries and so on. And alhamdulillah, it is so refreshing to, to make this connection finally. This old in my life, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, I'm also a master student on the IPSA program. Background also, as of the other Mashayikh mentioned, also scholar of Deen. For the bulk of my life, also in an informal way, completed the honors program a couple of years back. And going back a bit further, I do have a career in civil engineering, transportation planning in particular, policy writing, and mainly planning, and also a little bit of building experience as well. And then after that, also a qualification, well, an MBA qualification, for general business. And what else? Yeah, currently I prepare policies on public transport. I think that's about it. Other than that, I'm Yunus as it is. No Mufti business and so on, and just Yunus. And married, 4 children, 2 grandchildren, mashallah.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
And shukran.
Thank you very much. And Zuleika Abdul
Not sure if she's back from Maghreb,
okay.
doctor, in Pretoria.
Okay, all right. Fine, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. So as we go, I guess if I pronounce incorrectly somebody, or just if I make some mistakes, please do correct me. And now let me just share the screen.
Doctor, we left out Imran.
Okay, Sheikh Imran, please. Yes, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, doctor?
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Imran, you have to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, yeah. Maybe the I know that some people will have a bad internet connection, not stable internet connection. We have the same problem with other students also at our institute. So
he's gone. He's not here anymore.
Okay, all right. All right. So just give me a minute. Let me try this. Tell me, what do you see?
You see the multiple circles there, sir. Worldview, epistemology, science, and that's, yeah. We're seeing your screen.
Okay, so okay, now I'm sorry, the internet connection of some of you may be quite bad, so it's very difficult to hear. You may type in the chat box. Okay, now let us start our class, and then whenever it is the time for Maghrib, please let me know. You just open the mic and say that this is Maghrib time, and let us stop for 15 minutes. Okay, so who will? Okay, anybody can just jump in and tell me. Okay. Now let me just what we are going to do today, inshallah, is as much as possible. Of course, I would like to cover the everything that I've been planning for today. And first of all, we'll go through the course outline. I will just briefly explain the contents of the course. I'll talk about the assessment topics and a few words about references. And I will also I will send you the rubric, whatever is the the assessment, how we're going to assess some of the essays. And then course outline, we'll go through that. If you have any questions, course outline, questions and answers. I think, I hope that everybody has had a chance to look through the LMS. I saw that the majority, I think, had looked at the LMS at least in the past couple of hours. So maybe you had the chance to download the course outline and some of the articles. And then we'll talk about the definitions, also the economic problem. So basically, economic problem is what the discipline of economics studies, and without the economic problem, there is no economics. And we will cover the Islamic worldview. And okay, let me admit. And I think here we will share a lot of our understanding and our views on the worldview. And at the end, we'll have a summary and some questions that I would want to ask everyone. Okay. Now the course synopsis. If you had a chance to look at the course outline, the very first thing you'll see, what you'll see is the synopsis. And this course introduces students to the basics of Islamic economics, higher objectives. So we'll talk about the maqasid also, and how it challenges the capitalist model, and whether it does challenge capitalist model. We will discuss that. And we'll also discuss the Islamic worldview, the economic methodology, the Islamic economic methodology, and systems features. Because the economy is a system. Just like human bodies are systems, disciplines can be viewed as systems, and so economies and maybe behaviors, they are as systems, and we'll talk about what really that means. And I think you've studied, or you've taken a course with Prof. Jasser, and he shows what the systems thinking is, and we'll talk about the transdisciplinary studies, transdisciplinary thinking. And of course, the course will also deals with market functions, with consumer behavior, resource distribution, and sustainability. We'll talk about the global economic order, and also we'll talk about the prohibition of riba and principles. Okay. I have uploaded it. I don't know. I'll check it out. I'll check it out if the course should have been uploaded. If not, then I will also share it in our WhatsApp group. Okay, so what we will cover, I mean, the whole of this course, it covers maybe 4 areas of economics. So we'll talk about economic concepts, the different concepts. What is economy? What is scarcity? What is opportunity cost, efficiency, normative and positive economics, employment, and so many other concepts.
Excuse me, Doc, the Adhan is going for Maghrib right now.
Okay, all right. So shall we start?
Yes, I think we should.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And also the course outline is loaded on the LMS system. I just checked now.
Okay, all right, great. So I'm going to pause the recording, and then we will reconvene in 15 minutes then. So it's
Inshallah.
okay. All right.
Jazakum
Thank you.
khairan.
Can we make it at 6:30, Doc?
Okay, all right.
Shukran.
So everybody's agreed, so let's do it at 6:30.
Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.
شكرا جزاكم الله خير.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Doc, don't forget to stop the recording. Doctor, don't forget to stop the recording.
Yes, I have stopped.
Oh, okay.
No, it's sharing, or is it recording what I stopped?
I don't know. I can still see that the red light is on.
Pause recording, sorry. No. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So these are the 4 areas that we are going to look at. And so economic concepts, microeconomics, these are the questions of consumption, production, distribution, utility, competition, markets. So we'll talk about that. And at the macro level, we'll talk about monetary policy, inflation, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, global economic order. We'll talk about the indexes that are being used by, for example, the GDP, what it means, why we should have it or shouldn't we have it, and what are the other ideas, to replace it. I mean, other questions in macroeconomics. And inshallah, this part, Dr. Zaid will cover, inshallah. And of course, we will talk about the banking and finance. And here we'll talk about financial markets, the instruments, the banking instruments. We'll talk about contracts, and of course, some of you may be able to help me with that as well. And yeah, the general meaning of what is banking, why is banking, what are issues, challenges today, and the matter of money, what it is. And this specific area, I think this is very important, especially nowadays, because there is a lot of misunderstanding of what money is. And we will talk about that, inshallah. And so learning outcomes, if you look at the course outline, we have 3 learning outcomes. And generally, just to describe the Islamic economics as a discipline and to give you a theoretical background of that. Compare and contrast the Islamic economic system with the conventional one, and evaluate features of the Islamic financial system, its theoretical background and application. And so since this is a postgraduate course, we will be more into analysis, evaluation, trying to understand and trying to evaluate the current conditions, what is out there, what are the problems, economic problems there. And so the assessment will have 2 types of assessment. So we'll have essays, weekly essay, and each essay will be like not more than maybe 5 pages, but if you'd like to do more, 5 would be enough. And so you'll be writing 5 essays for each week. And I'm going to share the rubric, how are we going to assess these essays. And I will share it, and you'll see what kind of essays, the format and other requirements. So I'll share that with you, inshallah, after the class. And presentation, I think starting from probably from the next week, inshallah, I think we'll be communicating with some of you, and maybe you could be presenting what you have written maybe the week before. So we'll talk about the presentations. I mean, this is going to be based on one of your writings. So whatever the essay you write, and you prepare one out of those 5, you just prepare one of them for presentation as well. So about 10-15 minutes presentation. And we could discuss after the presentation. We could have a question and answer session. So somebody presents, then we will talk about that. We will ask questions. And so these are essays and presentations. So this is the assessment method. And let me see. I guess. Oh, okay. You have the access to the course outline, and there are all of the topics are given for each week. What we're going to be studying, and in the LMS, inshallah, I'm just like for today's class, I'm going to share some documents for you to read. It can be some books, that can be articles, and I will ask you to read maybe certain pages, something. And also at the end of the course outline, there we have the list of references. Well, the list of references is taken from because the whole course outline is built on the current what is it, on the current introduction to Islamic economics from the International Islamic University, and you may not have access to all the books, but I will try to get as much as possible. And inshallah, we'll try to cover the references part. And so, just basic definitions. What we are going to cover. Worldview. We start with the worldview, and it's a system of beliefs or point of view about the world held by an individual or society. It's a mental model of reality, a framework of ideas and attitudes about the world, the society, and ourselves. Can you hear me well? It's fine. Okay, all right, good.
Oh, good. All good.
Okay, because my computer says my internet is unstable. So, okay, alhamdulillah.
Doctor, there was a little bit of interference here, and I noted, but you're starting now.
Okay, all right, good. Well, the worldview is an important part of any science, because really what we get, and okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can, Jeff. We can.
All right, because because it says you've been signed out because you're currently signed on another device. Maybe it's Dr. Zaid. So, okay, if you hear me, then I'm going to continue, and if
very soft on my side now all of a sudden. I'm not sure if it's the same for the others.
No, loud and clear on my side.
Okay, all right, great. So the issue of worldview is important, because whatever we learn, whatever we experience from childhood, from our education background, all of this affects our worldview. And this in turn affects how we see knowledge, how we see science, and it really affects how we understand economics and other sub-disciplines of this science. So having a correct worldview really affects our definitions, affects our outlooks. And so we will talk about the worldviews in a little bit. And so epistemology is a sub-discipline of philosophy that studies knowledge, studies sources of knowledge, nature, and justification. And this is important because this is where we talk about the nature of knowledge and where it comes from. How do we understand knowledge? And you see, Plato defined knowledge as justified through belief. And this is different from the modern definition of knowledge, which is more technical. But this this outlook on knowledge as justified through belief, it is really it really takes care of the knowledge itself, of the belief part, and of the evidences and proofs. Okay, and then science, of course. Once we the epistemology, how we view knowledge, it also affects our view of science. And science can be defined as a formal way of building and organizing knowledge with the purpose of understanding, predicting, and controlling phenomena. And this is very important here, predicting and controlling phenomena. And this is a view of knowledge today, not as a justified true belief, but as something that can be used to predict and control. And once you take this stance on with the worldview that you try to predict and control, then, okay, but if you please raise your voice. So do other people have the problem with hearing me? Okay, yeah, no. Yunus. Okay, all right.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay,
I'm struggling.
So, okay, Adi Rahman wants to be admitted. Well, I have my mic right in front of me, right next to me.
It's not your mic, doctor. You're good.
Okay, all right. Well, my volume, I think, is also quite up. All right. So the concept of science, I mean, this is very important, and how we understand science really affects how we view other concepts. And so then we have economics. Now, here is just a generic definition of economics, which I will expand maybe later a little bit. So economics is a social science that studies human actions in production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. And so why in a given economy? So this is production and distribution and consumption of goods and services in a given economy at a given time or time frame. Why is it in okay? So why in a given time frame? Because the circumstances, conditions change from time to time, and conditions of countries and societies tend to be quite different. And so if whatever is true for one country and applicable in one type of economy, so it may not be really applicable in another, even though the modern economics, modern sciences, they try to, modern social sciences, they try to use like a unified approach to things, a unified theoretical approach. But this is quite hard because of a lot of differences. Again, the differences are because of the worldviews, epistemology, our conditions, and our settings. And bank is a financial intermediary. I mean, this is the generic understanding, general understanding of what a bank is. So it's a financial intermediary that accepts deposits and gives loans. And finance is used as a term used to denote management, creation, and study of money and investments by individuals, organizations, and governments. Now, the economic problem. This is the heart of the matter, without which there is no study of economics. And so, economic problem is what the discipline of economics is attempting to solve. Since the economic relationships and transactions in society are about exchange, production, consumption, and governance of those relations, economics is trying to answer the question of what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. And these three questions are the most basic and the basic ones, and they were proposed by the American Nobel Prize winner in economics, Paul Samuelson. And these questions can be asked by individuals, firms, and governments at micro level and at macro level. And these questions do not include only the production of goods, but offering of services as well. And like what services to offer, how to offer them, and to whom. And these questions would relate not only to firms, but individuals as well when they sell their labor as service to hiring organizations. I mean, offering yourself as a labor. So this is also part of the economic problem. And we can expand a little bit and add further other questions, such as at what cost to produce, at what price to buy or sell, how to reward for labor, how to reward labor, or what value to assign to units of labor. For example, how do we pay for wages? Is it hourly wages? How do we calculate wages? Hourly, monthly, or according to some other value? How to distribute the resources obtained through production and exchange? How do we sell? What are the channels of distribution? Or let's say, how do we distribute the wealth in an economy? And this also affects the equality or inequality question. And how governments regulate the economies, and then, well, do we need the government regulation at all? Because there have been, and there are some views that says that government regulation is not needed, especially in the area of exchange of economic relations, transactions. And this view has been called laissez-faire economics. And so there are views like this. And so these are different questions that the discipline of economics talks about. So we see, just like other disciplines, economics has its own set of problems, issues, or questions that it tries to solve or answer. And just to remind that this is part of social science, and it studies the relationships between people at micro level and at macro level. And so the etymology of the word economy, economics at its basic is the science of household management, or oikonomia, it's a Greek term. But this concept was extended to include the whole society. And so the economic problem is the societal problem that affects all segments of society. It affects the rich and poor, young and old, women and men. Also, the term economy is related to the concept of saving, thrift, and efficiency. So we may choose, for example, we may choose appliance that consumes less energy and call them economical. A cheap car may be called an economy car. And for example, during the Soviet Union times, I was raised during Soviet Union times, and we had this slogan, very famous slogan in the USSR, which is the economy must be economical. The economy must be economical. So, which is the opposite of the present day idea of abundance of goods and services in capitalist economies, where goods and services are produced in competition, and the market is supposed to decide whether to let some goods and services thrive or disappear. And so the question I'd like to ask everyone, why do we need to study economics? Maybe we could just have a break of, a discussion of a few minutes. Why do we need to study economics? What is the importance of this field of study? And what does it help to understand? So anybody can just, anybody can just jump in and, why do we need to study economics?
Yeah, if I can make a basic statement, to just study human behavior of need and possibly survival as well, just as a basic statement there. Because I'm also of the understanding that it's probably a wrong understanding that supply and demand is based on social activity and becomes social science. And so maybe survivability is and I think I'm probably referring to Western economics. Basically survival. So the study of economics is around survival. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other ideas?
It's about addressing the broad social need. So the broad social need in society, and having a system that can manage it.
Yes, yeah. And if we look at the broader system of governance, it's a subsystem of governance of countries, and we see a lot of problems in economies, in public life, where maybe corruption causes a lot of problems, and it affects economies to a large extent. And I can vouch for the Russian Federation, where the corruption is so high, and the people are suffering. So, and I understand it's not too much different, maybe in your place as well. And especially with whatever happened in a few weeks, or what was it? Not long time ago, in South Africa.
Corruption seems to be very prevalent, Doc.
Yeah.
Yes.
In South Africa, we're experiencing, and we being exposed to the level of corruption. However, I don't think that we should be naive and think that other economies or other countries are not don't have corruption. I think perhaps it's better covered up, and so yes, we acknowledge our challenges here, And we will definitely, I think, as a collective and as a nation, need to work towards, developing a more or higher level of morality in terms of dealing and interacting and so on. That's what is needed, education.
Yeah, I must admit I enjoyed the maxim from some Russian writers where they quoted that, in communist countries, everyone is equal, but some are more equal than others. and that opened the gate. That opened the gate to, to my mind, that was opening the gate to corruption. If I think of Leonid Brezhnev, for example, and the amount of farms that he owned, at the time, it is maybe just a case in point there. But also the notion of economics that I think one thing thinks of Islamic economics in very simplistic terms. It is this whole notion of adl and ihsan that has to come in their proficiency. And I'm thinking of the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam once told the Sahaba when they came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and they said that things are becoming expensive. You've got to control the prices. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made a very simple statement, O kama qal, make it a very simple statement saying that, no, I do not want to interfere in that because Allah Ta'ala sets prices. So this adds a huge Allah-conscious spiritual dimension into economics as well. Shukran.
Okay, all right, thank you. Of course, there are, since the systemic thinking will show that all of the subsystems of economy, social life, law, and all of these subsystems, they depend on each other, and that's to a large extent they also depend on the worldview of people in whatever the locality they are living. So it's all interdependent. The whole system is interdependent, and even that is why they say think. What is that? Think globally, act locally.
Yes.
Yeah. So all of this, I mean, this is even if we act locally and we manage to build maybe a small local community which is strong enough, somehow it has effect on other maybe other neighboring communities or maybe other people, and other people want to learn and understand. Okay. All right. Now, all right, Khadija wants to be admitted. Welcome. And now, to better understand the issue of economics and the economic problem from a historical perspective, students of economics would usually maybe take a semester of economic thought or the history of economic thought, and where they would study in more detail about various schools of thought, various scholars and their works. And we should also have maybe a quick look at the development of economic thought across centuries. And if you'd like to know more, I can share some good resources on that, inshallah. But they are not required for reading. They're not required reading for this course. But we'll just go through it very quickly. Anyway, the scientific thought does not appear out of nothing, and usually follows the pattern of learning from the predecessors, adding to that knowledge and transforming it with new research and innovation, and then transmitting it to the next generation. So historically, when we talk about the development of economic thought in the West, usually we start from scholastics, which was not a school of thought in economics, but a general outlook at ethics and philosophy that stemmed from the Christian belief and their scholars. However, we must note here that what Joseph Schumpeter refers to as a great gap in one of his writings, he refers to great gap between the Greeks and the scholastics, which is about 11, 12 centuries and on. Actually, it was full of scientific activities and writings by Muslims, and that is why I placed here Islamic civilization. And here there was a lot of activity before the scholasticism, and because they were greatly influenced, and the scholastics were greatly influenced by the Muslim scholars. And scholasticism had its own approach to economic issues and is marked by morality, moral philosophy, Christian teleology or Christian maqasid, purposefulness. So we can say that they had a kind of Christian maqasid in thinking about economic issues. And hence we see discussions on the prohibition of usury, discussions about just price, sovereign's ownership of the land. And some of the representatives of that era are Thomas Aquinas, Albertus Magnus, Henry Freimar, and Jean Buridan. They lived in 13th, 14th centuries. And then next on the chart is mercantilism. So as the grip and influence of the Catholic Church diminished and slowly vanished from the public life, it coincided with the rise of nation states in Europe. And we are talking about 16th, 18th centuries. And this period is characterized by the emphasis on the development of national economies as they were emerging out of feudalism, and where international trade as well as credit to support trade began to take a more definitive shape. And this was the time when the European monarchies started to consolidate their power by assuming greater authority over the lands, natural resources, and trade. And rivalries between countries led to numerous wars and to colonial expansion. And meanwhile, states began to compete for gold and silver through war, trade, manufacturing, colonialism, and stricter domestic policies with regards to tariffs, export, and calculation of money or circulation of money. This is the age when nation states promoted bullionism, or the preference for gold as a form of wealth. So countries competed for gold through colonialism, and wars. They restricted imports unless was absolutely necessary, or in exchange for domestic goods and services, so as not to lose gold. And they also encouraged export when it brought gold. And at the same time, the influence of finance and banking grew. Banking interest was accepted as normal practice. And the Christian ethical rules in exchange were no longer practiced. And we also should note here that the economics as a formal discipline did not exist as yet. So, but it was an era of really rapid development, lots of financial crises due to speculation. And next on the chart is classical economic era, classical economics. So we may attribute the rise of economics as a discipline to Adam Smith and his book that was published in 1776. This is the Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. And just shortly, it is known as Wealth of Nations. And in this book, Smith systematically analyzes the issue of labor and wages, the issue of capital and value, economic systems and revenue, taxes, debts, production, and economic growth, money and exchange. And his idea of invisible hand is is often being quoted by economists who promote the idea of freedom or freedom of markets, or what is known as laissez-faire capitalism, laissez-faire capitalism. And interestingly, Ghazanfar, one of the Muslim economics scholars, I think I provided his article in LMS. He found the example of pin manufacturing by Adam Smith in Adam Smith's work to be the same or similar in that was mentioned by Al-Ghazali in Ihya Ulumuddin 700 years before Smith. And anyway, it was the time of rapid, really fast, rapid industrial development, rapid population growth, and fast economic transformations. And I think living in 18th century, especially with the advent of industrial revolution, was far more challenging than our modern times, because suddenly the whole society is transformed. And the whole society is transformed from agriculture-based to manufacturing-based. And new technologies appeared with the printing press in 15th century to 18th century, steam engine in 18th century, and later in 19th century, the electricity and telegraph. So the transformation was really great. And so it gave rise to scholars who analyzed and wrote on various fields of science, and thus bringing the change to their societies through education and policies. So we see the rise of social sciences, and among which the study of the economics and the human interactions in the market, and at the level of production of goods and services, and also their regulation by taxes and laws. And of course, besides Adam Smith, there were other writers such as David Ricardo, Thomas Malthus, John Stuart Mill, Jean-Baptiste Say, and many others. And we can also include Karl Marx among classical economists, because he also analyzed the entire economy from a political perspective. And he pointed out great tension that existed between the capitalists or the owners of the means of production, or the owners of the capital, and the laborers who worked for capitalists. And then the next here is the neoclassical economics, which is generally attributed to ideas started with Alfred Marshall, who in his work, Principles of Economics, published in 1890, the idea of neoclassical economics is attributed to his work. But of course, there were other scholars like before him and after him. So before him, there were William Stanley Jevons and Léon Wanra, French scholar. And so the field was developed further, and it continued growing until the economic crisis of 1930s, end of 1920s and 1930s. This period is also characterized by the growth of econometrics, or mathematical economics, which uses statistical methods to analyze and explain prices, demand and supply, wages, and many other aspects of economics. So the main purpose of this new science was to predict and control economic outcomes. So again, to predict and control the economic outcomes. And if you remember, I mentioned when I talked about science and epistemology, the definition of knowledge before was from Plato's time, from in the classical period, was the justified true belief, where the focus is different. The focus was the finding the truth. understanding the truth, understanding the reality. But here, the focus was a little bit different because the reality was maybe different. The complexity of the economic interactions and the economies were becoming more and more complex, and so the methods and tools and methodologies and approaches are also changed. And so it was maybe the best approach was to use mathematics for precise calculations. I mean, that was the approach used. And of course, later on, the Great Depression happened, and it brought new challenges that the existing economics couldn't solve. And hence, when the next phase is associated with John Maynard Keynes, who suggested in his general theory of employment, interest, and money, that when countries run into economic crisis, governments should finance the economy because private businesses will not invest by running into debts. Whereas governments, they can spend more and they run into debt. They can decrease taxes. And so they have all the ability to revitalize the economy and decrease the pressure on private businesses. And so this is how Keynesianism was born. And this is how the macroeconomic approach to managing the economy was born. And whereby during crisis, governments should borrow heavily and finance large projects to stimulate the economy. They should provide employment, pay wages, and so on. And so the approach proved to be useful, and following this approach, whole countries were rebuilt, and especially after the World War II. And so when governments initiate large projects like building highways, dams, power stations, power lines, schools, and hospitals. So this way, they not only finance those construction projects, but other small businesses as well. They help. Those businesses, they somehow, when they're close to large construction projects, like suppliers, maybe restaurants, farmers supplying fruits and vegetables, for example, they provide smaller services, so they help. So it means large projects that maybe the government deficits, they can stimulate economies in this way. However, general prosperity soon followed by what is known as stagflation, or simultaneous economic stagnation and inflation. And consequently, this followed by the era of what can be called now the new neoclassical economics, which advocated the idea of greater economic freedom for private businesses and less government control. And so this brought new deregulation from 1970s onwards, and which was also good for a while, and bringing with it new stimulation for businesses, especially the finance. And this is where we see the real growth of banking and finance. And this is the time when we see the growth of financial markets, a lot of speculation, and of course, many spectacular failures and busts in financial markets. And the last of which was in 2007, 2009 global financial crisis. And of course, the theoretical economics, like other sciences, it usually follows changes in society. So it is, it's like ex post, they call it. You analyze what is happening and whatever you are writing, it's already exposed. You are analyzing and writing on something that has already happened. But of course, it makes the science to be more or less reactionary. And this is also true to a certain extent about Islamic economics as well. And we will cover this maybe in a while, inshallah. And definitions of economics. To understand the economic problem in its proper context, we should see how the definition of economics evolved over time. And so the popular categorization of economics today is that of classical economics and neoclassical economics. And obviously, the latter refers to the earlier scholars like Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and John Stuart Mill and others. And however, before I go into economics from a classical liberal perspective, I must mention that the development of scientific thought in Europe was influenced by the massive translation movement that was taking place in the Muslim East, which is in Baghdad, and in Muslim West, which is in Andalusia. And so when Joseph Schumpeter wrote about the history of economic analysis, and he identified the years between Greeks and the Greeks, Romans, and the scholastics and Renaissance Europe, he referred to it as Great Gap. This was actually nothing but the years of prosperity in Islamic civilization. It was really the era of growth and widespread influence in terms of science, architecture, and technology. And even to the extent that the princes and kings, they sent their children to study in universities and in Muslim universities in Andalusia. And it was really characterized those times, especially after from 9th century onward. This was really rapid development in Islamic civilization, especially with the Abbasid Caliphate, even to the extent that the scientific development was so great. One of the scientists, let me remember, Abbas ibn Firnas, I think in Andalusia, if anybody heard about him, at the age of 73, just decided that he wants to fly, and he built something like a delta plane to help him fly. And at the age of 73, he attempted and he flew for the first time. And subhanAllah, there are so many interesting things if you study Islamic civilization from a historical perspective and find out the scientific achievements. These are really advanced. Even to robotics, people made robots in this area where I live now. In the one of the Turks built robots, early robots, machines. And so as the worldview changed, so did the discipline of economics, which was concerned with how individuals and societies allocate scarce resources to meet their needs and wants. And this approach is characterized by greater precision and wanting to resemble natural or exact sciences like physics. And so we have economics. And so if you look at the classical definition or the definition of economics in classical times or classical economics, it is the study of production, distribution, and growth of wealth in society. So we can underline this, we can highlight this or underline this wealth in society. So the focus was a little bit different. And during this time, if you look at the definition here, we see that the economics from the neoclassical perspective, it is the study of how individuals and societies optimally allocate scarce resources to meet their needs and wants. And so we can underline here, oops, again, I'm trying to underline with my mouse. And so here the focus is on scarce resources. And in another era, which is in Keynesian era, we see another focus here is the macroeconomic theory of total spending in the economy, and it is its effects on output, aggregate output, aggregate demand and supply and employment, and inflation. And so you see times change, definitions change, focus on economic studies change, and you know, this is the reason what I referred to from the very beginning, that the definition of science, definition of different you know, knowledge sciences really depends a lot on the time and place and the factors that affect those definitions. And so the generic definition of economics from the by subject matter could be that it is a social science that studies aspects of production, consumption, and distribution and exchange of commodities. And definition by method is by Lionel Robbins. I shared his essay. It's a lengthy essay, I would say, but it's very good. It's very good. You know, his understanding of what are the problems with the with the classical economics, with the definition of economics, and he states that the economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means, which have alternative uses. So this is very general. This is very broad, that covers that covers a lot of areas in economics. And now, if we come to the definition of Islamic economics, I have shared one article by Dr. Hafaz Furqani. We really should be grateful to this colleague of ours. He's a graduate of the International Islamic University, and he's Indonesian. He's now in Aceh. And his PhD supervisor was the same as my PhD supervisor, Prof. Aslam Hanif at IIUM. And so Dr. Hafaz Furqani, he collected and analyzed a lot of definitions definitions of economics, Islamic economics, and he gives a really good account and really good comparison also with the conventional economics. And so he made a classification of Islamic economics, and he classifies it into 4 types. Like type 1 is Islamic economics as the study of the principles and rules of Sharia that make up the framework or milieu for an economic system, as well as activities and behavior of economic agents. Another type is that Islamic economics as the study of ways to realize Islamic objectives in economics, or the maqasid Sharia or maqasidi approach to economics. And then there is another type, which is Islamic economics as the study of ways to solve economic problems in the Islamic framework. And the last one is Islamic economics as the study of humans, or the Islamic economic behavior, human behavior in making choices and decisions. And so we see that the majority of Muslim economists, they provide their own definitions, and some of which you can see now in the next slide. For example, Muhammad Arif wrote in 1985 that Islamic economics is the behavioral study of a Muslim who organizes the resources which are on trust to achieve falah. Then Islamic economics is the knowledge and application of its functions and the rules of Sharia that prevent injustice in the acquisition and disposal of material resources to provide satisfaction of human beings and enable them to perform their obligations to God and society. And this was written by Hassan al-Zaman in 1991. And by Muhammad al-Zarqa, this is his definition that Islamic economics is the economics which is guided by the Sharia. And it covers all humans, Muslim and non-Muslim, in their behavior, institutions, and policies related to economic life, even when such behavior is not Sharia compatible. And so we can have the generic definition. And this is like maybe my understanding of what it is. Islamic economics is a social science that studies the economic problems of humanity, and it evaluates their solutions from the perspective of the Islamic worldview and values, as well as human reasoning and experience. Sorry, can you hear the adhan here? Is it too loud?
That's fine, sir. That's fine. Beautiful, mashallah.
Well, I'm just like 300 meters from a masjid here, from a very old masjid.
Yeah. Mashallah, very good. Mashallah, refreshing.
In Istanbul. So maybe we could just stop just for a little while azan is being called.
Okay.
Cool.
The software is asking me, are you playing music? And they're spraying against mosquitoes here. So, okay, so we continue. So this is a generic definition of Islamic economics as social science that studies the economic problems of humanity and evaluates their solutions from the perspective of the Islamic worldview and values, as well as human reasoning and experience. Now, the Islamic worldview and economics. In the institute that I'm teaching, I started my class on epistemology with this picture here, if you can see. The picture really shows that how different worldviews we can, if we look just at something from one perspective, it may not give us a complete picture of reality, and so we can be having our own maybe one perspective and we would say that this is the best approach, or maybe this is how we view, and that other people should view it. But basically, sometimes there are other views that we may not be aware of, and you know, in our worldview, we try to see others, try to understand others, and we try to include others as well. I mean, this is in my own understanding, because I am from a secular society. I was brought up was raised in a secular society in the Soviet Union times, where I basically, until the age of 19, I didn't know what Islam is all about. I just heard, but I've never practiced. I never known. And you know, that was one aspect, that was one perspective, that we lived in one. We looked at the world from one lens, that we lived, for example, in Soviet Union, and really maybe we saw just one perspective like this, while the world really had many different views, many different perspectives and ways to look at. So it is really important for us to be open-minded, and open-minded to other perspectives, and try to see and understand and use something which is really useful, if it is compatible with our worldview, and try to see others, and try to find something which is beneficial. And so worldview is a system of beliefs or point of view about the world held by an individual or society. It's a mental model of reality. It's a framework of ideas and attitudes about the world and the society and about ourselves. It is synonymous with the words conviction, belief, and paradigm. And the earliest usage was maybe Weltanschauung, German word. And so there are different levels of worldview. Some of them can be psychological or attitudinal. So we have our own psychological outlook at the world. So, for example, a person with a happy person will have a different view of reality than a depressed person. So there will be a psychological difference of our outlook. Ideological. So let's say a Democrat will have a different outlook than maybe a conservative, or different political views. We will have, you know, a communist will have a different view of the world than a Democrat, and a Muslim will have a different maybe view. A practicing Muslim will have a different view. And so there is religious, there is ideological, and there is a philosophical worldview. And so what are the factors affecting worldviews? Of course, the background experience, what do we say, what did we study, what families we were raised, what we experienced in our school days, and you know, in our maybe universities, or you know, professional background. So background and experience, really. Values and ethics, what kind of values we practice, what do we believe, what is ethical for us, what is unethical, our attitudes, and maybe culture and tradition. I'm sure the culture, whatever the culture you have in South Africa, will be some of it maybe different from my perspective. Maybe in North Africa would be different. In In Turkey, we have some other traditions. So these all affect worldviews, and of course, religions. Different religions they affect people differently. Political views and affiliations. So if you are part of some organization, you tend to maybe carry some ideas that are pertinent, or maybe some ideas that are relevant to your organization. So the different ideas, backgrounds, experiences, values, all of these factors, they affect the worldview. And so religion and economics, the Islamic experience, according to Muhammad Najatullah Siddiqui, one Muslim economist, he says that the Islamic economic analysis should focus on family institutions rather than individuals or market institutions. Then they should also focus on cooperation rather than competition. And he also talks about the real transactions in financial markets rather than speculation. And we also should focus on elimination of riba, or usury, and the maqasid based in thinking that seeks to serve interests and protect from harm. And so Islamic economics as a discipline inculcates values through the Islamic worldview. And so the worldview is a philosophical concept. And to understand it, we could use the philosophical disciplines of ontology, epistemology, metaphysics, theology, and ethics. So, for example, first, the ontology asks the questions of what is being, what is existence, or what is reality. Understanding of our being as the servants of Allah, who have the goal of worship and taking care of the earth. It shapes our worldview in terms of our responsibility. So in ontology, we can look at the worldview from this perspective. And also from the epistemology, as the science of knowledge, it provides us with tools of understanding the nature and sources of knowledge, whereby it shapes the worldview in relation to knowledge revealed by Allah through the text or through the science of Allah in the nature. And metaphysics, it is the study of what is above nature or physical world, the study of consciousness, or the questions of space and time, as well as the cause and effect. All of these shape our worldview in relation to who we are as human beings and living in the physical world. And theology shapes our understanding of ourselves and our worldview in relation to the divine, in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, in relation to who we are, what we are to do, and our goals and responsibilities in this world, and what to expect in the next world. So this is theology. And ethics. Ethics shape the worldview in regard to interpersonal, intrapersonal, intergenerational, interspecies relations. And how are we supposed to deal with ourselves, with others, and with the environment? And so the core elements of Islamic worldview is, of course, the creator of Allah, creator of this world is the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sustainer of this world, of us. And then the human being who is rational, spiritual, was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the Khalifa on this earth for the purpose of worship and managing or administering the earth. This earth is given to us temporarily. And then the next element is the aim of life, or the maqsad. And maqsad here, I call this falah. So this is a success, well-being in both lives. And the nature is the source of economic resources, and these are abundant in regards to needs, but scarce in regards to wants and desires. And so we have relative scarcity. And now, just to summarize and to have some questions. Okay, the summary is that this social science is what studies human actions, and in economics, actually, economics is a social science that studies human actions in production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. And Islamic economics can be defined as a social science, that studies the economic problems of humanity and evaluates their solutions from the perspective of the Islamic worldview and values, as well as human reasoning and experience. And worldview is a system of beliefs or point of view about the world held by an individual or society. It's a mental model of reality, a framework of ideas and attitudes about the world, this society, and ourselves. And so the questions I would like to pose to everyone, and you can share in discussion. If you have read anything about scarcity or the definition of economics by Lionel Robbins, what is the importance of this concept of scarcity for Islamic economics? So maybe we can start with that. So it's an open discussion. Anybody can just open mic, and or if you'd like, you can just raise the hand and join in the discussion.
If I'm, Doctor, if I might just start the debate, I must be honest, I only read, I just started to read, I didn't read in depth because of the time. Look, I just came from work, and okay, I'm not making excuses now. The point that I'm trying to make is what I just got from the scarcity aspect, and also from what I read on the definitions. To me, the scarcity concept, but that is just my limited understanding, sounds to me that we're seeing it from a negative side. If you look at from scarcity, to me, Islamic economics must be seen, according to me, from a positive side, as to what can Islamic economics benefit the world and Muslims, and even those who don't have. And that to me, at the end of the day, is supposed to be, your definition should encompass the positive side of economics. That's just my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
And maybe inshallah is also an opportunity for
yes.
For the mouth to jump in like that. Maybe there's also an opportunity to create a negative and a positive. Ultimately, that brings about balance. And my very limited understanding, maybe looking at it from an Islamic perspective, I'm too scared to say from a Quranic and Hadith perspective, so I'll keep it general. Is that there was a problem with the way resources were shared and distributed and used and abused at the time, and we're very much in a similar situation now. And then we have Rasulullah, the Sunnah of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, coming in and trying to rectify those. So therefore, the negative situation, and then on the solutioning side, the positive outcome. But the positive outcome, of course, doesn't only end in this world. It has a reach into the akhirah as well. and hence the very strong Allah conscious dimension that has to go with economics as well. But one does get a sense, from gauging from the definitions in the papers as well, that it will remain a speculative science. And depending on how worldview changes, worldviews changes, and this will spur on more definitions of economics that will either skew it one way or the other. And to my understanding, from an Islamic perspective, the solution is in there. For example, we had laissez-faire coming up in the 17th, 18th century, late 70s, 1700s. And with its whole notion of, the hidden hand of the free market and so on. And today, that definition, Thomas Friedman, an American writer, he reflects on this, hidden hand. He said the hidden hand of the market, of the open market, will not survive without a hidden fist. And so, in the light of that, the connection is made that if, for example, the study of global business, for example, is typically an example of that protection, hovering over that hidden hand. And then one scholar makes a very coarse connection there, saying that if the hidden hand of the market that cannot survive in your country, then the hidden fist comes out. So therefore, if McDonald's cannot survive in a country, McDonnell Douglas will come and visit you. They're the manufacturer of the F-15 fighter jets, for example. And so we see this aggressive, attack on establishing a particular economic, how can I say, order of, and so on. So again, hence, economics is kind of being redefined again. But alhamdulillah, our dean stays stable and always a stalwart there to, as a point of reference and so on. Shukran, I think I'm talking too much. Yeah.
Thank you. Khadija Sandai, please. Khadija, your raised hand. We cannot hear.
Where's my man?
Khadija Sandai.
Khadija, you have to unmute. She's muted.
Yeah, I guess ask to unmute. Okay. She's muted, yeah. Okay, Nabil, go ahead.
Sorry, Doc. I just want to say, from an Islamic point of view, many of even the shuyukh and ulama are guilty of the lack of the distributing this ilm, this knowledge of buying and selling and contracts and all the business sector of fiqh. And unfortunately, that's why people have this limited understanding of worshipping Allah, and they only limit worshipping Allah to Hajj and Salah and fasting. But they don't understand there's a segment in our Turath, in our tradition, the business sector, how to deal, how to buying and selling and fixing of prices. And there's so many examples that happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And also how Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu appointed a lady to regulate the market, and that again shows because of a depth understanding of the fiqh of mu'amalat, the fiqh of interaction. And he made statements saying nobody can interact on a business level without understanding the fiqh dimension of it, where there's a great possibility that he will fall prey to usury, he will fall prey to riba. So there are numerous examples. I don't want to take much of the time, but I think this is a subject matter from a Islamic point of view are being neglected by many scholars. There's very few scholars that really speaks about the fiqh of mu'amalat. I mean, I can count on my fingers that really
that people are exposed to this level of understanding of fiqh. Shukran.
Thank you. Ilham? Ilham, please, you raise the hand. You can unmute. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah.
What I want to say is that as human beings, we have needs, wants, and desires.
You are muted again. Ilham, please unmute.
Can you hear me?
Now, yes. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
You.
Yes. Yes, yes, go ahead, please.
Hello.
We can hear you. Okay, let me.
Okay.
All right,
back
all right.
here.
Okay.
What I was saying is, as humans, we have so many desires and so many wants, but our needs should not be limited, because needs are needs. We have to get them in order to survive and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, when we come to our wants and desires, there are so many, we need someone to limit them. And that is our religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should limit our needs, our wants and desires. If that's the case, so scarcity limits our wants and desires. It's a concept that teaches us how to live in a limited supply rather than in a luxury or any other. So scarcity is something useful, I guess. As human beings, it teaches us how to live in a less serving environment. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
All right, Khadija. Khadija, you can speak now.
Maybe if I can, I just want to make one comment.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I think scarcity in Islamic economics is that important ingredient that allows for balance. And I think it's a necessary in the Islamic system. Yeah, I think it allows for balance. Yeah, basically that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, Khadija, go ahead. Try again. Okay, all right. So anybody wants to comment?
Yes, Dr. Zuriya. Yes.
Zuriya,
I like the word relative scarcity that you covered during your presentation, and I think as Muslims we never forget the fact that even though we don't have a lot of money, but the barakah with which we live our lives is manifested. I remember one class where one of our Maulana said that every Eid will come and there would be an economic crisis, but the children have new clothes and the tables are, spread. And so it's the quantity and the quality, I suppose, of what it is that we're focusing on. But I just wanted to bring the aspect of barakah to the table, that people with a lot of money versus people with not a lot of money, the needs and the wants and the desires that our sister mentioned really for me fitted very nicely hand in hand. Shukran.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And so what are the aims, what are the maqasid of the study of economics in contemporary times? So just whatever you think, because you studied the maqasid, some in mu'amalat. If you have studied fiqh mu'amalat, maybe you could talk a little bit about that from that perspective.
Maybe Dr. Rafikov.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Maybe the maqasid of economics could, to my mind, very limited understanding once again, would be obviously be the maslahah, achieving maslahah of the people, and of course avoiding mafsada, creating benefit for the people and avoiding the evil that comes with that, as a general overview. But maybe going even more general, the understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed all the resources on earth. And in terms of zakah, in terms of sadaqah, in terms of all the ways of distribution, maybe in that way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the responsibility of sharing with humanity. And Allah ta'ala has endowed some and some not, so that there can be those to give, because it could be a big bala on humanity if there is no one to give sadaqah and zakat to, for example. Yes. It means an ibadat lost to humanity there and so on. And so this is why we do not curse the wealthy. We do not, and also we do not see poverty as a bala. For example, because the one is there to look after the other. And again hinting at that relationship for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to call us to account. And maybe a definition of accountancy should be located in there, as opposed to the opinion that we're having today, to understand money, the flow of money, and particularly the management and responsibilities for money, for example. So again, eating at that the divine and human relationship, and maybe that is, well, I do believe in Islamic economics should be one of the aims of achieving that. And from there, of course, we will have the systems flowing of how we can achieve that one vision set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shukran.
Doc, if I may,
yes,
just add something.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In terms of fiqh al-mu'amalat, it entails, broad laws of the Sharia and Amaliyat, the practical laws that really systemize the connection between the mukallaf and bighayrihi, like the laws related to cities, the laws related to fiqh al-usra, family, hudud, application of punishment, alaqa, connection and between the hakim, the ruler, and those that he rule. So the laws related to the country's iqtisadiyya, economics, contracts, and so on. Shukran.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, Dr. Ildus.
Yeah,
I'd like to agree with Brother Yunus about the maqsid of the Islamic economics should be to be the maqsid of zakat. When the wealthy must distribute to the poorer in the community, in order for there to be a balance, and also to engender community spirit. So for me, it's all about maslaha mursala, where everybody benefits from the wealth of a metropole or a geographic area, and not necessarily just the ones that are rich, so they can just carry on regardless. They must be aware of what goes on in their communities, so that there is a balance. And it's not just about, it's not there's a hadith about the lower hand is better than the upper hand. So the wealthy and the arrogant can then learn humility from the poor and the needy.
Yeah.
That's my contribution.
Yeah, thank you.
Doc, I just forgot to mention something. And just come to mind the hadith of our beloved Rasul says that how he distributed the character. Everybody's character are totally different. So exactly the same, the Prophet ﷺ said everybody's financial ability and sustenance and rizq are not the same. Every moving creature on the face of the earth, Allah is the one that distributes wealth.
So there must be people that is poor and there must be people that is wealthy. That's the normal how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, because Allah is the one that gave sustenance and provides sustenance and rizq. And that's why even our beloved Nabi Muhammad had the choice of choosing, to be wealthy, but Rasulullah rather preferred to be balanced, one day to have food and then the next day not to have food. And at the same time also, I would also say in the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, it was such a time where there was that he made a call to say economically they were so wealthy because of, in terms of the application of the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he used to marry people off from the state's money. He used to ask, is there no poor people that he can distribute zakah? So in terms of, there's even the recipient of zakah, they shouldn't feel embarrassed about, receiving zakah, because of that's the domain and instruction and commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Brother Yunus, Ustaz Yunus mentioned, and also the sister, about the various maqsad and objectives of giving. And also I think giving is not only limited to giving wealth, because of Nabi Muhammad also sallallahu alaihi wasallam defined, where the Sahaba said, "Inna ahla duthuri ya'khudhu ujur," that the people of that wealthy, they're taking all the thawab and the reward. So Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam then rectified the mindset, saying, "Didn't you guys know, bikuli tasbih and sadaqah, what every tasbih a person gives makes, that's also forms of charity. What any tahleel, la ilaha illallah, that's charity." To the extent Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of they couldn't compete with the wealthy, they competed on salah and competed on tahajjud. But the aspect of wealth, they couldn't compete, and they complained about this because of the wealthy people will beat them. So Nabi Muhammad then restructured this definition and mindset to the extent Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the person that protects his honor and dignity when he gets married, that's also a means of sadaqah and charity. Shukran.
Thank you. Thank you.
And maybe just some worrying statistics as well. Some time ago, about 10 years ago, someone made a point saying that the 400 most, there was a meeting of the 400 most wealthy Americans. And someone made a calculation and concluded that their wealth put together makes for all the mismanagement of their wealth, because each of them had home economies the size of little states, for example. And so the person made the point that those 400 wealthy American families are currently ensuring that Africa will remain in poverty for a long time. So there's definitely a distribution challenge happening there and so on. So yeah,
okay, thank you.
Just on the way modern economics is currently being managed.
Yeah. Khadija raised her hand, so please, you can. Go ahead. Khadija Sunday, you raised your hand.
I think she might be exercising there, Dr. Idris. That's why we see the hand going up and down.
Okay.
Maybe she has an issue with the internet.
Okay. Then Ilham also raised her. Ilham, please. Ilham Awil.
Yes, doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, what I wanted to say is that the concept of maqasid relates with the protection of the deen, the nafs, the aql, the mal, and the nasl. So these things indirectly or directly are related to economics, I think, because somebody should secure his economics, a society should secure the economics in order to protect nafses, and that indirectly indicates that the person, if he has a protected nafs, it means that he can protect his deen. The society could protect the deen of its members, and that takes to the protection of the aql, the nasl, and other things. So maqasid is directly and highly related to the concept of economics, to the concept of Islamic economics in my perception. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. It's I can see that you've studied the maqasid from this systemic kind of systemic perspective. So yes, everything is related to each other, and this various concepts in the maqasid, of course, they are related closely to the discipline of economics. Okay, then anyone else?
If I may, Doctor.
Yes, so go ahead, please.
I think maybe the only thing I wanted to add really in terms of Islamic economics is really the concept of contracts in Islam, and contracts between companies, for example, that free the people from riba. As we find in the secular world, we find that riba plays a big part of economics. So in an Islamic environment, I think that would be something we would want to steer away from. Jazakumullah khair.
Okay, thank you. Ilham's raised hand again. Please go ahead.
Sorry, Dr. Eagles, I'd like to say that the first verse of the Quran that the fiqh scholars teach you is So Allah has made trade and transactions permissible and made riba forbidden. So we must start there.
Yeah, thank you. We will definitely touch on all those aspects, inshallah, from the fiqh muamalat perspective. And Khadija is writing here, I think Islamic economics should focus on the concept of abundance. I don't know if, have you read my paper on scarcity and abundance? Okay, but subhanallah, this is interesting how you touched upon the same thing that I was really interested in this concept of scarcity at the age of abundance. We really are living in the age of abundance now. I mean, in many societies, in many countries, we have malls maybe and full of things. I mean, if you have enough in your pocket, I mean, the choice is so huge. So there is real economic abundance in the market. I mean, the access to goods and services, there is so much, the abundance of all of this. And so there is this dilemma. On the one hand, there is so much scarcity and poverty in some of the parts of the world, but so much abundance in many others. So yes, distribution of wealth, it's a really hard thing. But this is, of course, if we look at maybe whole economies, because countries are divided, countries are nation states, and in nation states, their first responsibility is to their citizens. And so the condition of the Ummah, the condition of the world today is so that the nation states, they are the priority, or the insight, or the provision of goods and services and distribution of those goods and services in a given economy at a given place is a priority for supposed to be, or should be, the priority of local governments. And unfortunately, there are certain aspects of our either psychology or sociology, of our corruption and whatnot. All of this have effect on this ways of distribution. And so, yes, I think it's an interesting concept to discuss. Scarcity versus abundance today. And so that is why I talked about the relativity of scarcity.
Maybe picking up on Sister Khadija's point there, Dr. Lewis, is that should we look at economics through the concept of abundance, we will really have to back it up with a really punchy policy and approach to wastage, how we deal with israf in such a matter, in order to draw it closer to scarcity.
Okay, all right. Okay, so how does Islamic worldview affect our study of social sciences? Of course, it does have certain a lot of effect, but how does it affect? In what ways?
Yeah, I think in the current worldviews, with the level of division sitting within the Ummah, we would most probably end up with lots of different views. Lots of different worldviews. For example, if we look at extremism, how that is defined at present, we look at the groupings attached to that, and many a times it is the sharing of a particular worldview that has a limited worldview that has created this almost classist or divisionist settings within the Ummah of today, and so on. So yes, we often also see as a panacea for all our solutions in being one ummah and therefore one worldview. Maybe as Muslims also we should become more comfortable with the worldview of another Muslim, but being able to make sabr with that and live through that, and also define and see ummah through that as well in the study of the social sciences. And because it is regional, it is nowadays with the concept of Asawiyya, it is also national. And then there's international, but at the international level, we're taking a lot of pressure as an ummah because, possibly those that stand as Islamophobes and, those kind of groupings and their supporters, they see a different view. So therefore, it is in their interest to break down whatever worldview as Muslims we might have, even though it augurs well or it does agree with some of the opposite worldviews as well.
I just thought of something. I think all of you in this applied Islamic thought course, master's course, you've taken the course on Maqasid with Sheikh Jasser.
Yes.
So how would you see this Maqasidi approach affecting the studies in social sciences? How do you understand it? Because he touches on those aspects as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, definitely what goes hand in hand with that is the notion of again, the middle path, the wasatiyya. And of course, we need to locate the middle path at the right place. For example, we cannot locate the middle path between right and wrong, but in maybe many paths that are beneficial to people, and maybe at a global level to humanity, an understanding of where we could possibly, how can I say, create interventions, to bring, to develop that Maqasidi worldview and particularly approach. Of course, after which, once the concept is set, the systems then begins to develop from there. In a very general sense, yes.
Brother Tamer, are you here? Dr. Tamer? I think he...
You saw his name?
Yeah, Tamer Zaki?
Paradigm shift, Brother Yunus.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. Paradigm shift, mashallah.
Okay, and anyone else who have maybe taken There is one particular word that I'm looking for, and that is transdisciplinary approach to social sciences, and it's not only this transdisciplinary approach to Islamic studies, but also to other social sciences, and that could really benefit from, I think, from other natural sciences as well. Have anyone heard? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Ildes, I argued when I reviewed Dr. Oda's book on that, I argued that a Muslim should first immerse himself in Islamic studies and get a full grasp and understand it completely before he or she goes into secular studies, because your Islamic worldview will obviously affect your secular approach to things. When you, for example, sorry to attack you, Adil, but if you are an attorney, then if you have Islamic background to being an attorney in a secular state, then you have more empathy and you have more compassion for your clients, for the guilty or the non-guilty, whatever the case it may be, but you have more compassion because you're coming from an Islamic perspective. That's what I want to say, that about the fact that you need to be first immersed in your Islamic way of doing things first, and then you can go off onto another trajectory.
Thank you. I have the comment by Dr. Adi Rahman. He says that in my presentation, you mentioned the economics as social science that studies human action. And he says, interesting, you don't use the word behavior, but action. So this is for him, it's a fundamental, this term have fundamental consequences because action will depend on our intention. And he's asking, what's your opinion? Well, yes, action, this is something that we really, it's not only, it covers not only our behavior, but of course, when we talk about behavior, we really go into the area of psychology or discussions in psychology. But our actions, they cover many different aspects, and in those actions we have economic actions, maybe our many other. I mean, within our families, in our societies. So I think this term as action, I think it's a good and relevant term, and yeah, that's why I also used that. Yes. And I think what is that? The Austrians, the Austrian economics, they use this word praxis, and this is very close to the understanding of human action or praxis. Yeah, and action implies responsibility. Yes, thank you, Sister Khadija. Yes, action implies responsibility.
If I may, Doc.
Yes, yeah. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. Just to latch on what Sheikh Zuleika also mentioned, and especially in respect of your question and your mentioning of the transdisciplinary, that is also my understanding that at the end of the day, with my reading, if you look at Maqasid as a whole, that everything connects together. And that is my limited understanding of the transdisciplinary. Also, that all the disciplines, that mustn't be from a anti-Islamic perspective, or sorry, no, let me not say say a non-Islamic perspective, where these disciplines are seen as one. But there's supposed to be an interconnection between all these disciplines. And obviously, you must be properly grounded in your Islamic worldview, as Sheikh Zuleika has also indicated. And I'm also obviously just putting another spin on it, because once you are properly grounded with your Islamic worldview, you are not going to then be swayed by these foreign concepts that says that you need, like, that's exactly the way the non-Muslims are doing things. They make these disciplines on their own. And to me, that doesn't help humanity and society. There must be intertwining of all these disciplines. And I don't know if that is what you were looking for, but that is just my take on the whole transdisciplinary issue, and also how maqasid, how the purpose behind everything is obviously important. What are we trying to achieve? How are we trying to improve society and humanity? To me, that's obviously very important.
Thank you. Thank you, Adil. Anyone else?
Well, maybe just in a general sense that if the Islamic worldview is of the narrow kind, it will clearly look at the social sciences and its impact through that lens as well, and therefore end up narrow and perhaps perfect, but in a very small setting. Whereas the real work lies in Islamic worldview that is very broad and all-encompassing. So this will diversify the study of social sciences in a much more fundamental way. And I think maybe I'm saying in another way, your what's it called, expertise kind of approach.
Disciplinary, transdisciplinary.
Transdisciplinary approach, yeah.
Doc?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to conclude and touch on what Sister Zuleika also mentioned. Yes, the Islamic worldview, that's extremely important. And sometimes from, the sister also quoted, وَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. Inshallah, we're going, I don't want to go in detail, but but we're living in a world. We're not promoting. Obviously, we studied fiqh and we understand Allah wage war against riba. But the reality also in terms of living in this society, and people are doing business, and so there is other principles. So you cannot just take from a parent text and not understand these other maqasidi rules also in fiqh. Ad-darura tubihu al-mahdura. When a person is in a time of necessity, then automatically that act or that transaction that were haram cannot become permissible. And we can go on in terms of buying a house. Is it a need? Is it a necessity? And one of the sisters mentioned the maqasidi approach. Yes, where the ulama dispute in terms of, is it a darura? Is it a haja? Is it a need? Is it a means of adornment? So because of the objective and the understanding of the need or darura, how scholars then defines the darura, then automatically that particular act, which is in its form haram, can then become permissible. So it's very important that we understand these concepts from an Islamic point of view. الضرورة تقدر بالحاجة. The necessity are being limited based on the need also. So everybody's needs are totally different. So and yes, just to say a blanket statement, but we're living in this real world where everything is attached to riba, and also the other issue, the critical side of it. The Islamic finance departments and banks does not really make it very easy on Muslims. And I had a whole debate and interaction with the Islamic manager on this. They're making it much more difficult. Then what other option do we have then to go to the conventional banking and use the objectives that the Sharia gave me, and then I will use it, ad-darura tubihu al-mahdura, and various other possibilities that in the scope of the Sharia. So based what Brother Yunus said, based on your broad understanding of mu'amalat and also various principles of other disciplines, it helps you. It does not limit you, but it really creates that expansion and that confidence in making a particular choice in a contract. Because it really plays with people's lives here. And that, Doctor, will conclude not for extending. And our parents really, in the olden times, were very strict on going and buying a house from the bank or from a conventional sense. So they stayed in a very limited small house with a lot of children that goes against the Maqasidi approach. There's no hifz, there's no protection of the environment, they stayed in that particular space, gangsterism, so many. There's no the protection of your aql, you're renting a house, so you don't know if the landlord will up the price or down, and it is so many other issues. But they prefer to stay there in that particular space because of one narrative. And the narrative was only this apparent narrative saying, no, Allah made riba haram, and that's why you cannot. And so that's important that we understand it in a very broad, because just to, because everybody, there's different people that works in different spaces of banks and companies. So we need to be very careful once you make a statement, because we need to have a broad understanding of the Sharia. Shukran.
Yes, thank you. We will, inshallah, we'll cover these issues, inshallah, in coming classes, inshallah. Okay, so we have some other comments here. So maybe Adia Rahman commented that yes, the behavior is not always represented in our consciousness. It is usually dependent on media and environment. And the word action is also in line with the concept of maqasid. And Zulaykha writes that actions are judged and on one's intentions. إنما الأعمال بالنيات, yes. And Adil writes, care should be taken that necessity must not be used to circumvent the law. So necessity concept must be critically looked at. Allah knew that the 21st century issues will arise. Inshallah, we will slowly, we will cover some of these concepts and problems. Inshallah, we'll talk about them. Maybe not in detail, because this is an introductory course, but I will share as much as information as I can, so that you could read and understand and expand your own knowledge. And okay, Ilham, please, your raised hand. Go ahead, yes. Ilham?
Unmute.
What I was saying is that as Muslims, we all know that Islam is the very nature of all human beings. So for every aspect, for every concept in life, Islam has something to say, and it should have something to say. So the question is, how well do we understand our religion? How much do we get the point in this question? So if we deeply know our deen, if we deeply know our history, our civilizations, then the question will not be the concept of darura and permissions, as our brother said. We will start to make this daruras, we will start to remove this daruras and make the environment peaceful and a good environment for all Muslims to practice what they really need, what they really want to, how they really want to live in the world. So the question is really understanding the deen, understanding our nature and our history well. I think that's my concept. Thank you.
Okay.
And Shukran. Maybe just another contribution for the final on this one is with a worldview and the view of social sciences. Of course, a worldview again, should not be a static one. It must be one that moves to and encourages action. We do have currently, I do believe there are some areas of, as Muslims, of which our worldview is stuck. We're still longing for the Khilafah to return, for example. The Khilafah, on the study of the Khilafah had its own problems, amongst other corruption as well. So maybe that is not the answer for Muslims in modern times. And bearing in mind also what makes a worldview so important for Muslims, the last 100 years is the first 100 years since the time of Nubuwwah of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that Muslims are without a leader. And maybe this accounts for the, we know, of course, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam died on a Monday night, and he was only buried on the Wednesday night once the leadership for Muslims was sorted out. And the last 100 years, in fact, that's been, and that makes us a very unique, the people living today makes us a very, very unique nation and part of the Ummah, for example, and now challenged with a worldview. So therefore, the importance of a worldview that has to be active, that has to be proactive most of all, and not static, because we can have a worldview in our mind and in our hearts, and we can dream and we can long for that perfect state as long as we want to, but it's not going to happen until we have some objectives in mind. And so therefore we start out with a particular objective, and then the management of that objective right to the end. So we will start out maybe at a scholastic level and so on, and then eventually there will be an implementation. And the maqasid, the importance of the maqasid guiding the sociology in between has to be the common thread until, you know, humanity benefits as a result of that worldview eventually. Shukran, and Ma for interrupting all the time.
Thank you. Okay, so I think for today it's already, I think we've done 3 hours. And for me, it's also already the Maghrib time is ticking out. So I need to pray Maghrib also before the time goes. But before we stop the class today, I wanted to state one thing. A friend of mine who is a sociologist, a Muslim sociologist, he said, we are living in a time where it's the first time in history of mankind where children know more than their parents. And they have access to
internet.
Yes. So how does that, I mean, just think about it. And we are not going to go into this question. So just just going to leave you with this. Let your head
but there's also but there's also an economic imperative that drives that. In fact, the economic forces and influences of the world, for example, made sure over the last 50 years that the buying power is placed in the hands of children because of the emotions that parents have towards children. So when our child wants something, we feel guilty already, you know. And so the system has succeeded with us in that. I've got 4 of them, mashallah.
But that is why, Doctor, I can just add a last comment.
Yes, yeah.
That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمُ الَّتِي جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا وَارْزُقُوهُمْ فِيهَا وَاقْسُوهُمْ وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. That basically Allah says in this ayah that do not place your wealth, your sustenance, do not place it in the hands of weak-minded people. You know, so yeah, it's just as
so this is something for us to think about, and inshallah from the next class after tomorrow, we'll talk about methodology. Okay, so I think for now let us stop our class. Otherwise, we'll be talking about next morning. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, barakallah.